What's up, Doc? Welcome to the Docs Get Money podcast. Are you a badass doctor killing it professionally and has bigger dreams than just clocking in and out of the hospital? Do you want to leave behind a legacy that is as lit as an HBCU homecoming? Want to know how other doctors are getting to the big bag? That's right, making 5, 6, and 7 figures without putting on the white coat? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Kimberly, but you can call me Kim or KB. I went from being a burnt out and overwhelmed emergency physician to the founder and CEO of 2 6-figure non-clinical companies and beating burnout along the way. I'm also your business coach, here to help you make money moves to change the world. This podcast isn't just about making money, though. It's about leveling up your life, mindset, and bank account so you can build an empire that's as iconic as Beyonce. You ready? Let's get into it. If you're sitting on a mountain of expertise and wondering if it's possible to replace your clinical income while practicing full-time, I've got news for you. It's not just possible, it can happen in 90 days or less. But only if you create your FIRE offer, your express lane to fast income and a lifestyle that allows you to retire early, all while keeping your day job. Tailored for doctors ready to change lives outside of the exam room, you go from concept to cash in under 90 days as a consultant, coach, or midterm rental business. Think it's a stretch with your schedule? Think again. With the FIRE Offer Combustion Kit, you'll craft your expertise and story into an offer that's too hot to touch and sell it to make your first 4 or 5 figures. Ready to change lives and make bank fast? DM the word BURN to me, Dr. Kimberly, at Dr. Kimberly B on Instagram, and let's start a fire. What's up, Doc? Welcome back to yet another episode of the Docs Get Money podcast. I'm really excited about today's interview with one of my coaching friends, Dr. Nondumiso Stevenson. She is a dynamic leadership and executive coach from South Africa. Yes, from South Africa, the beautiful country of South Africa. And we've been spending probably about 40 minutes before I hit the record talking to each other about the differences between America and South Africa, the similarities, and all of those things. But I'm really excited to jump into the interview with Dr. Nondumiso today. We met each other in the same coaching container that we've been in. We've been working with the same business coach for quite some time, and I got a chance to meet her in person last summer at the National Medical Association conference that was held in New York. So it was really, really great to actually not just see her on a little Zoom screen like I have now, but actually get a chance to see her beautiful face in person. She just very recently moved to the United States, and we'll probably get to that in the course of our conversation. But let me tell you a little bit about her before we go into the interview. So Dr. Nondumiso Makhunga-Stevenson is a certified physician leadership, development, and executive coach with over 20 years of diverse experience in healthcare, spanning pharmaceuticals, public health, general practice, clinical research, and hospital management. Her expertise uniquely equips her to understand the challenges healthcare leaders face in navigating complex and uncertain environments. A passionate advocate for Ubuntu-centered leadership, Dr. Makhunga-Stevenson draws on the African philosophy of interconnectedness to help physicians align their personal values with professional aspirations. Her coaching empowers leaders to resolve conflicts, enhance productivity, strengthen team dynamics, and develop awareness of emotional intelligence. She is deeply committed to guiding healthcare professionals towards purposeful and authentic leadership and fulfilling careers. Having personally experienced the pressures of healthcare leadership, Dr. Makhunga-Stevenson transitioned into coaching to continue making a meaningful impact. She collaborates with physicians to build transformative strategies that honor both the individual goals and the collective well-being. She believes that every physician can achieve a fulfilling career and life by aligning with their core values and leading with purpose and authenticity. She holds the distinct honor of being the world's first medical doctor trained and certified in Ubuntu coaching. Okay, we're going to get into that. So, Dr. Nondumiso Makhunga-Stevenson, welcome to the Docs Get Money podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here, Dr. Kim, and I've been really relishing the opportunity to chat with you and to your audience as well.
Absolutely. Like, we've been in each other's orbit for several months, but we just realized that as we sat down to record this podcast, this is the first time we actually got a chance to just talk to each other. So that was really, really good. There was a couple of things that already jumped out to me in your bio that I want to discuss with you, but let's just start from the beginning. Why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself, how you grew up, and maybe even how you got into medicine in the first place?
Yeah, thanks. I was born in Durban. If you know Durban, I know you've been to South
Yes, I
Africa.
know Durban. Yes.
So Durban has a township, the largest township in Durban called Umlazi, which is my absolutely favorite place. A very unique place because it's the only township until recently that had its own number plate, you know. So I'm very proud to come from that community, a community that I believe raised me. It's a very active, resilient, community that's very close to my heart to this day. I was born to a single parent. Although my father was very much involved in my life, my parents were not together. I have a younger sister raised primarily on my maternal side of the family, very close to my maternal grandmother. My mother was, or she is still currently, she's retired now, but she was a professional nurse when she was still working. And my within my family, I also had a lot of healers. My maternal grandmother was very adept with herbs, you know. So she was the kind of person that would grow a lot of traditional medicine, a big advocate for traditional medicine, because her mother or my great grandmother was also a herbalist. So I kind of grew up, I would say, in a medical family because my father is also a medical doctor, Western trained medical doctor. So that is really how the love of medicine, I think, subconsciously might have started. But I don't recall a time when I did not want deeply to become a doctor. That was something that was very, very close to my heart. You know, when you're growing up, you always, you ask, the older people always ask, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I wanted to become a doctor. I got a little bit confused, in high school. Sometimes they send these career people to come and talk to you and, you entertain teaching and you entertain law or engineering or something like that. But by the time I left high school, I think I was very clear that I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't know why. I didn't even really know much about medicine, like on a day-to-day basis. What does a doctor do other than from a few visits here and there? I don't think I really thought very deeply about it. But even with that, looking back, I would still make the same decision. I would still make the same choice because it has been such a challenging, yes, but also such a fulfilling journey. And where I am now as a coach, especially working with other doctors, I think, that's where a lot of my day-to-day fulfillment also comes. So that's a little bit about where I grew up as a Zulu speaking South African until recently when I then moved to the US on account of marriage and to have the luck and the fortune to meet Dr. Kimberly Brown in a coaching container.
Yes, that's another thing. Yes, she just came to America for love, y'all. So some people may be asking, girl, why would you move to America? She came for love, just to be sure that you guys knew that. I want to ask, I guess, two questions. So what is the medical training like in South Africa to even become a physician at all?
Yeah. So South African training follows the UK nomenclature and curriculum or structure. It has changed and undergone some, iterations since I last left medical school. But when I left, we would do 6 years of
Hmm.
medical training. So the first 3 years would be your preclinical years. That would be anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, those types of non-clinical basic sciences,
Hmm.
essentially. And then you would move to, from the third year a little bit, but certainly from fourth year until sixth year, you would then do the clinical years. So you do internal medicine, surgery, obstetrics and gynecology, yes, and pediatrics, all those types of clinical trainings and basically be in the ward with patients. And once I completed that part of it, I then you then get your degree. That's what I got. And then I did 1 year of internship and 1 year of compulsory community service. So in total, I did 8 years of training,
Hmm.
after which you become a qualified independent practitioner. The majority of doctors do go into private practice and would work as the equivalent of a family physician here in the
Okay.
US. Yeah. But you would then have an opportunity, if you're interested, to specialize, and the specialties would be again within. You can still also specialize in family medicine and do a master of medicine, but other specialties like obstetrics and gynecology, pediatrics, internal medicine, which would be basically to deepen the scope of what you allowed to do.
Hmm.
Although even at general practice level, you have some scope, although it's very very limited.
Hmm.
So that's more the academic route. So that ranges also from 4 to 5 years of training, of additional training, and then after that you become a specialist. Yeah.
That's a really long time. So, but in South Africa, similarly to the UK, you can go to medical school straight after high school. You're not required to have an undergraduate degree from a 4-year college to get into medical school. Is that correct?
Yes, I started my medical training when I was 17, immediately from high school.
Okay.
So my first year in medical school was directly from high school. And I mean, as you talk about it now, I'm just wondering, whether that is a good thing, because I recall, you had in my class some very, very smart people, as most people are who enter medical school, who are 16, very, very young people, who progressed very fast through high school. But yeah, we were all in the class. So the typical, you know, first year medical student would be 16, 17, 18, maybe 19 in South Africa. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about when I was 16, I was just focused on getting my driver's license and going to prom. Like not saving lives or yes, that's what I wanted to do eventually, but it's like was I ready for that? Absolutely
Yeah.
not. And even because I didn't go to I went to college right away, but then I didn't start medical school until I was 25. I turned 26 the very next month that I started. So it was like, even in my early 20s, I'm just thinking about, yes, I had the desire, but was I mature enough to kind of handle what I needed to do in order to be a mature doctor. You know, I don't think I had the life experience that I needed to become a great clinician just yet. So,
I get you. And I think, something that I've always said about medicine is that it made me a very mature person. I really learned about life as a medical student. My family, was a middle class family, considered a middle class family, and I had the opportunity because of that status, to go to fairly good schools and attend private schools and so forth. Even though we lived in the township, and so for me, there were certain aspects of the average patient's life that I was not privy to, that I only, you know, was confronted with when I became a medical student. And that's when you really learn about how people live.
yeah.
Often, if you're raised in a certain way, you have your own little bubble, of 3 meals a day. And then you are having to deal with situations where a patient says, well, you're prescribing medication to me that I have to take it after eating, but I can't really guarantee a meal. And I
Yeah.
think, as somebody in public health, with a public health specialty, those are the things that I think you definitely appreciate. So, yes, I agree. Perhaps it is a lot, but if you embrace those lessons, you really get to see the world for what it is, and even the areas that you can have impact on. It really removes the naivety that
Quickly.
one can have very quickly, very, very
Yeah.
quickly. Yeah.
That's so interesting. That's so good. So you said you had 8 years. I'm giving you. You said you were 17. You were started. So you finished medical school when you were 25.
Correct.
So what happened after then? Because then, of course, you got all of this other amazing public health experience. You got general practice, clinical research, hospital management. What did your career look like after you finished? After you finished medical school?
Yeah, and I think looking back now is one of the reasons that I enjoy being a coach, because it was really jumping from one kind of opportunity to the other, not maybe as intentional as I would have liked it to be, looking back now. But I did a wide array of things. I went to the UK to locum for some time, which was very enjoyable because, again, I got to see a different kind of patient there and a different health system. Um, so coming back to South Africa, I settled down. I had my two kids, and then I also did a little bit of a stint in what you would call residency in public health medicine. I didn't enjoy it, and I didn't enjoy environmental health. That was not my thing.
Yeah, that
So
was my least favorite class as well too. It was.
my environmental health and toxicology and all of that, I think, just really, didn't, didn't, you know, I didn't enjoy it at all. But I loved epidemiology. That's the one thing that kind of stuck with me. I love that part of it. But my leadership journey kind of started off with me being on maternity leave and just deciding I'm not going to go back to that public health program. I was not keen, and I started applying for jobs, and I was called to be a senior clinical executive, so a hospital manager position in South Africa's largest hospital. And they gave me a very small department, which had, like, I think the hospital itself has got thousands of beds. But they gave me a little small department, and they said, you manage the pediatrics. And so that kind of started me off on this leadership journey. And so that, looking back now, was really the beginning of why I think I've become so much more comfortable with coaching around leadership and executive coaching. So the other roles that I had were project director roles in nonprofit organizations. I was also a country director for a large international nonprofit organization as well. I did some clinical research. At a time, I went back to private practice. I consulted in public health, for various organizations. And the last role that I had, I worked in pharmaceutical industry, which was also very, very enjoyable. And that was really when I made the decision to start coaching, because that was the first time I also needed a coach, and it worked for me.
Interesting. Let's go back a little bit though, because you said that you basically took a maternity leave and you did not want to go back to your public health. But then you got this huge opportunity to run this small department of pediatrics in one of the largest hospitals in South Africa. Was that your very first foray into leadership, into kind of being in that type of role and running it in that type of situation?
Yes. So that particular role, my first role in hospital management, was what I call a baptism of fire, and I appreciate, having had recent coaching and kind of reflecting on how challenging it was for me, because I was literally thrown in the deep end, really unprepared. And this is something I recognize also in a lot of my clients as we do coaching. And there were two issues that complicated it, if you will. One was the fact that I was transitioning from a clinical mindset to a non-clinical environment, although I was going to a hospital every single day, not seeing patients. So having to really think about what is my identity as a doctor without a patient. What does that actually look like, because our training prepares us to be in front of patients. So not being in front of patients, it really, subconsciously, it really was very uncomfortable. The second thing was, like I said, the transition from clinical to non-clinical, but also starting to manage a team of people. I was assigned a couple of people, a small department that I had to oversee, and also working in a cross-functional team. So for the first time now, my work and my outputs were linked to people that were in the legal department, who were lawyers,
Right.
people who were in supply chain, people who were in finance, who were not clinicians at all. And I now had to really get to understand, in this context, in a hospital, what do all of these people do? How do they fit into this? And that again, and I've seen this many times, and I hear it many times when I talk to my clients as well. As doctors, often we're used to leading all of this. We're used to knowing, and assuming that we are the leader and our word is final. Now, when you go into that environment, all of a sudden you are a cog,
In the
in
wheel.
this wheel,
Yeah.
And so, all of those things were quite challenging for me to understand. But fortunately, even at that time, I had great mentors around me, people that I'm still, even to this day, I'm still in touch with. And even going forward, I think that's one thing I've always appreciated, that even through these challenges of adjusting to leadership and all the different, aspects of leadership, I have had mentors that I can run to and say, hey, how do I handle this conflict between these two people that are supposed to be in the team? Now work is not getting done because they're not on speaking terms with each other,
Right.
So these were issues that I was young at that time, that I had to handle, So it was quite stressful, but in hindsight, I think in retrospect, I learned many lessons, but also about myself. So that was kind of my first foray into leadership, and I had subsequent leadership positions after that.
Yeah. That's really good, because I never really thought about it as how you just phrased it. Is like, as a doctor, we have always been looked at as in relation to the patient, meaning we have the answers, the other people have the problems. We should know because, excuse me, we've trained for X amount of years to get to this point, and the patient is the one that is coming to us, all knowing or all wise physician, to have their problem solved. But that's a really good point, that it's just like, now if you're not seeing patients, who does that really make me as a physician, as a doctor? And that can be a challenging and an identity crisis that people face. It made me think of, I've not been in that scenario where I was been put in charge of a hospital, but even when I went through my burnout experience, and okay, I've spent all this time becoming a doctor and I'm doing it, but like, now who am I now that I don't want to do this anymore? Or who do I want to become next? Or, like you said, who am I? It's literally like a identity crisis. I'm glad to hear that you had a lot of mentors and support with you along the way. I think that's one of the only ways that you can really navigate that. But I just feel so many doctors now, I think after COVID, have been asking themselves or saying to themselves that they know that this isn't it for them anymore. They don't want to just be seeing patients at the bedside, but then the next question, well, who am I going to be? What do I do next? What does come next for me? So it's really good that you had, like I said, mentors to kind of lead the way for you about that. So you didn't have to necessarily hire a coach to help you, but you were naturally being coached by the sponsors and the mentors that were around you in the hospital. That's amazing.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that way. There was a period where I did not have a mentor, and I felt it. I really felt it. I was new in the position, and I hadn't really identified a mentor. And that period was the most difficult, most painful time.
Can you tell me more about that? When was that?
Yeah, so I moved into one of the nonprofit organizations, and I was kind of new, and there was a lot of there were not many changes that were happening in that organization. So it was not easy for me very clearly to identify, to sit down with a mentor. What I will say about that particular situation is that up until that time, mentors had, automatically presented themselves to me.
Right.
And I found myself sort of sitting and waiting for somebody to mentor
Present
me.
themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
present themselves and come and mentor me. I mean, this is what people do, right? This is what people do. They just present themselves. Mentors just present themselves. And that I also that from that lesson or from that experience, I also learned the importance of seeking out a mentor. So I had to be proactive in declaring my need for mentorship, and say, listen, I need somebody to just kind of help me and hold my hand. And of course, the mentor said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. You could have asked earlier, So I think that's the one lesson I learned from that period, that if you don't ask also for mentorship, it's not a given that people will present themselves for mentorship. And so I try to also pass that forward. I do mentoring now as often as possible, and but I've kind of learned from that mentorship is a two-way partnership. It's you also learn a lot from your mentees. So but they also have to be an active member of this partnership for it to be mutually beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that leads me back to what you were saying about your coaching experience. That's the next role when you were really able to have a coach and it actually helped you. But before I ask you, or before you share more about that experience when you first had your own coaching experience being coached, but what do you see as the difference or the similarities between coaching and mentorship?
Yeah, the way I often explain it is that, you know, as a medical student, for example, we know mentorship very well. So it would be the senior doctor that would basically be standing right next to you to show you how to insert a drip or how to insert a catheter or to how to do a cesarean section, right? So it's sort of the usual, you watch what I'm doing and then you do exactly the same thing, and then I hold your hand, and then I'll teach you do it this way, and if you come across a problem, then I'll teach you exactly how to do it. So there's a lot of hand holding. There's a lot of imparting of skills with mentorship, but also there's a lot of teaching. I think that happens with mentorship, and it goes both ways as well. The difference with coaching is that with coaching, you tend to be more forward looking. So the way that I approach coaching is that I hold space for the client to recognize their own strengths, unique strengths, and we try to move forward using those strengths in a way that is largely dictated by the client, or let me say the client has agency, right? It assumes that the client has agency. They've got the innate knowledge and strengths and skills to actually be able to implement what they want from their life, and they know what they want. And mine is to just hold the space for them to think through a way forward. Although there is co-creation with coaching as well, but the client has most of the agency in order to make those changes in a way that is relevant to their lives. Yeah.
I love that. That's really, I would agree with that. It's mainly getting towards a goal that someone may or may not be able to get to by themselves, but almost helping them co-create a quicker pathway for them to get there with your experience and your tools and all of those things that you've created as a coach in and of yourself. So saying all that to say, tell me about your very first coaching experience. How did that even come about?
Wow. So I got my dream job. So after many years, leadership positions, very certain of myself, but really still yearning for the corporate experience. And I got this dream job in large pharmaceutical organization, and I struggled. I just struggled to find my feet. And what was frustrating about it was that I had an amazing manager, I had amazing team leaders. This was an organization where there was none of this, this toxic corporate politics that people talk about. None of that. I had so many resources that were available to me, but I was just struggling to find my feet. I didn't know what, on a day to day, what I was doing. I just couldn't see what was going to happen to me professionally a year or two from now. So it was really very, very uncomfortable for me. And I happened to confide in my sister. And I said to her, you know what, I think I'm going to leave. I don't even know why I applied for this job. I'm done, you know. And she said to me, you need a coach. You need a coach. And I believed her because I had watched the 12 to 18 months of her career completely transform. She moved from somebody who was also not very happy in her role to somebody who is getting, exciting roles, being headhunted for board positions in a very, very short space of time. And so she said to me, you need a coach. And of course, looking at her results, I said, okay, let me invest in a coach. And that's what I did. And it was, the mindset shift that happened for me, which was just in that one question that she asked me, because, with coaching, it's really about provoking thoughts,
Right.
and holding this space. And she asked me one question. She said to me, you want to leave, right? But are there no opportunities where you are that you can explore? And I was thinking and thinking and thinking. I realized that actually I had not given myself the time to really stand still in the organization and stand still in the position and just really take stock of what was around me. And when I started doing that, then I could see a direct line to the position that I wanted. I
Yeah.
knew then the kind of support that I needed from my manager. I could ask him specifically what I want, what I needed, all the different training resources and tools that are available. There are a lot of opportunities for personal branding in the organization. I was more intentional in taking advantage of those because now I could, see where I wanted to go. I had that, that clarity. I know some people don't like that word, but I had that clarity with it. And that was the transformation that I saw within a very, very short space of time. And within a year, I got a promotion to a global position that really spoke to my strengths, that really used my previous experience and my previous training in public health very, very effectively. And I could really feel that, I was thriving. But it was also a position that brought me very close to doctors, because that, in the pharmaceutical company, medical affairs, those were our clients. And I started interacting with a lot of doctors who were leaders, medical associations, academics, clinicians, some of them as well. And over time, as you build up a professional relationship, over lunch, they'll sometimes debrief and share some challenges that they might have. All of these, which I had experienced, in the last 20 years. And I realized, okay, so maybe I'm not the only one that kind of went through this. These
Right.
are some common issues that we have in leadership. These are common issues that we have as doctors. And I would give them advice, and all of a sudden, they would understand. So you've been through this, and I'll share with them. Yeah, I also went through that. This is how I handled it. So it also gave me an understanding that there is a shared experience that we have as doctors
Yeah.
in certain situations. And it was so comforting to me, and certainly to them, from the feedback that they gave me, to know that there's another doctor who's been through the same thing, and they could feel supported
Right.
through that experience. So that for me was really the turning point, and that's what at the decision that I made, that okay, I think I might look at this coaching thing a bit seriously, so that I can definitely help my colleagues.
Yeah, I love that. The fact that you and had you ever heard of coaching before? Had you even thought about hiring a coach for yourself before your sister was just like, "Hey, you need a coach, girl"? Cuz my first question would have been like, what is a coach going to do for me? Like, what are some of the questions that you can maybe remember that you had for your sister about coaching before you went ahead and got a coach?
Yeah, I think up until that point, my attitude around coaching, was that it sounded very airy fairy for me. You know, when you say to somebody, "Oh, I hold space for you to be your thinking partner," it doesn't seem very tangible. So I think I had an attitude around that. Also, I had strong belief in my own capabilities. Right, I'd come this far, you know, on my own. So I trusted myself that I had these capabilities, but the frustration came when, even though I knew that, you know, I had these qualifications, I had these skills, I still couldn't move further. And I think sometimes that is where a lot of people are sitting, is that, well, I've come this far. Listen, I've been a country director. What can you tell me?
Right.
You know what I mean? You know, I've been a chief medical officer. I know how to get things done.
Right.
But there may come a time when you know, when you shared with burnout, sometimes you need somebody to help you, to support you. It's not diminishing your skills, or it's not to say that you don't have skills, but that person can help you to really use those skills in a new way, in a different way, and perhaps in a more energy efficient way, so that you don't have to do the trial and error thing like I had been doing all along. So that's the you know, that's what I didn't understand about coaching, which I understand now. That I'd achieved a lot on my own, but it was not very efficient the way that I had done it. And with the coaching, I can get to where I want to go using my own skills, because it's not the coach that will get me there, but using my own skills, my own strengths, much faster, more intentional, you know, and yeah, and more fulfilled, I think, and with less burnout, Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Another thing that I keep hearing you say, and I notice that is slightly different about you than some of the other doctors that I've spoken to, whether that's like in the DMs on Instagram or even sometimes on with my first client or my clients when we first start working together, is I don't know what my skills are. I don't know what my strengths are. How did you become aware of and then confident in your skills and your strengths in this journey, would you say?
Yeah, you know, that exercise that I did with the coach, because that is one of the first things that we did, is focusing on self-awareness. You know, self-awareness is about that. It's about taking stock of what are you good at, you know, what don't you like to do, what are your values, you know, how do you operate as a person. So that exercise really helped me to really sit down and write a list. That was the task that I had to do. Write a list of my skills, and also a list of my achievements. You know, I had to indicate my achievements as well. So when you do that, you become, you know, you start to understand and pat yourself in the back sometimes. I think doctors, we're very humble. We are
Too
too
humble.
humble. We're
Especially
too
black women
humble.
are too humble. Exactly.
Yeah, we can be too humble. You know, we have skills. I've had the opportunity also to coach early career doctors, some interns and community service doctors. And they'll tell me, oh, well, I don't have skills. Can you do phlebotomy? Yes, you can. That's a skill. There are
That's a skill.
people who, that's a skill. So I think we tend not to really take stock of everything that we do know, and appreciate ourselves and pat ourselves on the back for that. So again, going to a coach helped me to acknowledge those skills. It helped me to acknowledge other aspects like my own resilience, you know, and other soft skills that I had as well, communication skills, listening skills, I could really say, okay, so maybe I'm not so bad. I have a little bit of problem solving skills here and there, which is what we do as doctors.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So again, coaching really helped me to sit down and identify hard skills and soft skills.
I love that. And that's also what I do with my clients. Yes, we're talking about business and starting non clinical businesses, more specifically as a coach, a consultant, or real estate investing for me inside of my program. But it still is because you're taking on a new identity as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, really understanding what am I even good at in the first place. And they feel like this is entrepreneurship is so far beyond what you've ever done as a clinician. So that's also one of the very first things I have clients do is to take a test and find out like what is your strength. And I think in America and possibly in South Africa, you could speak to this as well too. But I feel like our system almost beats out of us, and that sounds like so strong, but beats out of us what we're good at because we're always constantly told about how we missed the mark. Okay, either the patient lived or they died. You either got the door to antibiotic time or you didn't. You either met the metric or you did not. And it's always how we don't meet the standard and not necessarily, okay, maybe I missed door to antibiotic time by 10, 20 minutes, but did the patient get diagnosed with the sepsis? Did they actually have a great patient experience? Because I sat there and I listened to them about what was actually the problem and the challenge, like you said, and identifying those softer skills that we have that all goes into the diagnosis and the treatment of the patient. But I think, like I said, the system just beats out of us in a way to appreciate all of the things that we did bring to the table, so that the patient could live or survive or what have you. So I love that you really got to that with your coach, as far as that's the first thing that you understand is understanding yourself first, because everything of course comes from you, no matter if you're starting a business, if you're a leader, whatever your new role or new identity is. But yeah, that's super important to be mindful and self-aware, like you said, about who you are and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you're quite right. I coach doctors from South Africa as well, American doctors. I have coached at a point from Kenya, from Rwanda, Tanzania, and it's all the same.
Mm,
The I think our training to a large degree holds us to a very high standard or expects a very high standard of us. And I think justifiably so because
justifiably so.
yeah,
Yeah.
we are dealing with people's lives here. But there's always the conversation about whether that brings out the specter of perfectionism,
Yes.
and which often holds us back also. People would not get started even if they have a business idea. And I've met doctors, and I know you definitely work with them, doctors who really do understand entrepreneurship, who have that flair even,
Mm-hmm.
but they hold themselves back because in their minds it's like maybe I need to do an MBA first, and before I
Yes.
start a business I must go and do this training and that certification and get it just right and just perfect before I start something. So yeah, certainly that specter of perfectionism is common in doctors. I think it's what we grapple with, but it can also hold us back so much.
Absolutely. And that's some of the things that we work through inside of my program is letting go of perfectionism. Like I try to teach like, yeah, business and entrepreneurship, it is messy, messy, messy first steps. Like, it does not have to be perfect. The words do not have to be spelled all the way correctly. It doesn't have to be formatted exactly the way. It's just honestly getting it out of your head and in front of another person. And that's part of the challenge that I think some of my clients have, because of course I work with doctors, but that's also maybe my talent and gift as an emergency physician, because specifically emergency medicine, because we're not judged as much on perfectionism. It's like, have we ruled out the emergency? Did you die or did you not? Okay. Then if not, then we can kind of go on from there. But it's allowed to be a little bit more messy in a way, as far as that we don't always have the answer. We've ruled out a lot of things that it's likely not, but that gets us closer to what it is. And so yeah, that's something that I definitely see in my clients, is a lot of perfectionism, but the way that we work together, yeah, it's going to challenge that. It's going to stretch you to not be perfect. A doctor so and so in your buttoned up white coat all the time. It's like, no, sometimes your hair is in a messy bun and you just out here trying stuff and you throwing spaghetti at the wall. Sometimes it feels like, but you're actually doing the thing that you need. That's what was going to lead me to the question of like, okay, so you had this amazing experience with this coach. You really got the similar results that your sister got. When did you have the identity shift of like, okay, I'm being coached, my leadership has grown, I've been able to get my dream job and really thrive in this role. I think I want to coach as well too. So when did that brain switch happen?
Yeah, so the period when, not long after that, also, I suspect I probably started showing up very differently in front of my colleagues, to the point where they felt comfortable to ask me questions. Maybe I looked like somebody at that point, or I carried myself like somebody who had answers, for them, So not long after that, as I said, working with them almost daily now, interacting with them daily, listening to all their challenges that I'd been through, and informally giving advice, and all of a sudden the advice really finds a home with them, and they say, oh, giving me the feedback that they felt seen, and heard and understood. One of the challenges I've observed with doctors as well, it's not always easy for us to talk about our struggles openly, especially in front of other doctors.
Oh yes.
We'd rather just sink on our own, hide. We
Yep.
don't often, it's not comfortable for us to call on Kim and say, "Hey, Doc, you know what? I'm struggling with my business. How can I? What have you done?" It's something that we don't. I think it's not comfortable for us. So I started seeing that those conversations were were very satisfying and fulfilling for me, because I also felt that I was in service. I
Yeah.
was helping people not to go through some of the experiences that I had been through, some of the hard learnings that I had been through. I could just advise them, and at a minimum, just let them know that, hey, what you experiencing is normal.
Right.
And a good example, where somebody literally said, I feel so heard. I spoke to a colleague who just shared with me that he'd now been head of department, done the usual sort of route. Now he was at the top of his game and just feeling unsatisfied. Like, what was this all for? It's just like you're always going up this ladder, but when you get to the ladder, you don't even know why you are there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I've, since starting with leadership development and executive coaching, I see that a lot, with people who've just been aiming for the next rung, I will say unintentionally aiming for the next rung, going up, 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 burning themselves up just to get to the top. And then when they're at the top, you're like, why? Why am I here?
Why am I here? Yeah.
why am I here? So when I shared with him, there was a period when I had also felt that, you just going, you just after the next promotion, you're after the next promotion, and you don't know why. You're just driven for the next sort of goal, you're just driven by a goal. So he gave me that very heartwarming feedback, and that those are the types of conversations that I was having that made me say, okay, I think it's important for me to serve my colleagues in that way, support them, and maybe have them see a different perspective of their job. You don't have to leave your leadership role to be able to serve, but maybe that mindset shift that I had experienced might help you in the same position, do something that is more fulfilling. These days, I talk a lot about legacy, and looking at your career as your legacy as well, and thinking about your leadership and your career legacy as something that you can design. And so, I recently updated my LinkedIn profile, and I said that I help doctors to design their leadership and career legacy. That's where I am now.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so true. And I've been thinking about legacy myself as far as it relates to business, because I think about it as, you and I have invested time into going to medical school, getting the training, getting all those degrees. I cannot then pass on all of that to my child or to someone else that does not necessarily decide to go along that path. So how can I still leave a legacy financially, at least, or something that they can inherit and pick up and go on from for with their own, without needing to be a doctor per se, or needing to go through all of those years of struggle and experience as well too. But that reminds me, like, so many people, like you said, are just disconnected from our why, because most of us as clinicians, as doctors, are just naturally programmed to achieve the next step. Like, we've been here, now what's next? And we never really pause to, like you said, ask ourselves, why am I doing this? What is my goal? And, like, does this really fit with what I want my whole overall life to look like? Where does this fit in on the grand scheme of things? Or am I just doing this because that is what the society tells me that I am supposed to do? Is that what is just the next box for me to check? Is, okay, I was medical director, now I need to be assistant or senior medical director, now I need to be CMO, now I need to be CEO. For what? Like, if the vast majority, or at the end of the day, the only thing that I really want to do is be able to make impact on patients on a one by one basis, then why the hell am I the CEO of the hospital? I have not seen a patient in 10 years
Yeah.
or however long. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really, really good. It's
Yeah.
like, I feel like so many of us are disconnected from our why,
Yeah.
and how that fits into who we're trying to be at the end of the day.
Yeah. And it goes beyond that. And I argue that even as CEO or CMO, you can still leave a legacy with your colleagues, for example. So which brings me, I think, to the concept of Ubuntu and that
Which
legacy.
I was gonna ask next. Go ahead. No, please. You led right into that. Go ahead.
Yeah, because my something I'm very proud of course, is that I just accidentally stumbled on a group of academics and coaches who were developing this Ubuntu coaching and integrating the Ubuntu philosophy into coaching. When I started my company, I called it Ubuntu Doctor Coaching, which was really built on just this sort of one-to-one, the connection, right? That I can connect with these doctors, and we can be together, and I can understand who you are and you understand who I am. But I started digging a little bit more then about the philosophy of Ubuntu, which is it's very simple, really. I think we all know it in one word or the other, as the universal law of oneness. In the Bible, it is love your neighbor as you love yourself. I think there are many different iterations and versions of Ubuntu. But in coaching, the philosophy is really that you can make an impact where you are, even as a CEO. One of my very good friends who's really also helped me think through this talks about the circumference or the circumference of who you are as an individual. The larger it is, the sphere of influence that you have, that is how he measures success. So if you think about, even in a non-clinical role, yes, perhaps you don't have direct patient contact, but you work through and with other colleagues who do. And so your influence can actually be very wide into the community or into the society, merely by ensuring that those that are within your circumference are also empowered. So we live in a very competitive world where we often think that our individual success has to happen alone and at the expense of somebody else. But collaborative leadership, and I think there are many people who talk about this, some call it servant leadership, but that spirit of saying, as I grow, as I empower myself, other people are also being empowered by me, then, we all win when I win. That is what Ubuntu is about. So when people kind of shift their thinking as leaders, then issues such as micromanagement, kind of become less of an issue, because I would then have the understanding that, listen, Kim has got certain skills that I might not have. She might be able to solve this problem a little bit differently, and I can start to delegate. I can trust Kim, and I'll do whatever I need to do in order to trust Kim in my team, and treat everybody as an equal contributor. Yes, I may be the chief,
Right.
but as I grow as a chief, my responsibility is to also ensure that Kim grows, and Kim's responsibility is also to ensure that I grow as a chief. So that is sort of the way that, or the perspective that Ubuntu brings into leadership, is that it's collaborative, and that we all support each other and we work together in order to resolve a problem.
I absolutely love that. It's obvious, but then it's not so obvious at times, because we are sometimes siloed and just thinking that I alone can fix it, and it is me that's carrying the weight of all of this, and I'm the leader and everybody else is down here, but not really seeing this as a symbiotic relationship. That's really what I hear you saying. As both leader and follower, I will just say that, or leader and leadee, however you want to put it, but it's definitely a symbiosis in order for us to work together so that our collective goal is accomplished. That leads me, I guess, to my next question, which is, of course, so you made up in your mind just a few months into being coached, oh yeah, this is amazing, I'm getting results, I want to do this for my other colleagues. And then you started to share it because you showed up differently in and of yourself. So what shifted for you when you decided to take on the entrepreneur role and saying, okay, I want to do this for pay? How did you actually get your first paid client? Because again, yes, as doctors, we're genuinely the ones that share and give, and we don't really attach money onto the things that we're doing, even though it has tremendous value. So how did you get your very first client as a new coach?
Well, I got a coach.
Good
I
job.
got a
Yes.
coach. I got a business coach, and that was extremely helpful for me. One, I think it really, as I said, it validated some of the strengths that I knew I had. It helped me to build a community around me. Also very important of other coaches, which is as you shared, where we met. And also, I understood at that point that some of the challenges that I would have experienced were not unique to me. So I always, share with my husband, especially that, I am very sure that if I hadn't gotten a coach, I would have probably quit in the first month or first 3 months, very shortly after that, because I needed to have that mindset shift. And a big part of it is really understanding and accepting that I'm now an entrepreneur. So again, the identity that I had to assume, the beliefs that I had to hold had to change. And that's what coaching did for me. That's what business coaching did for me, is really help me to think about my business as a business. We are in service. I think doctors, that's think very much our nature to be in service. But to be in business also means that you really have to pay attention to the dollars and the cents, right? It becomes your livelihood. And so there are things that you have to be mindful of, where you put your energy, how you show up as an entrepreneur, versus just as a doctor that would do whatever you want to do for the love of it. This
Right.
is a very different mindset. So coaching for me for business is crucial if you want to become a coach in whatever area that you want to, whether it's a business coach or any other type of coach. Having a coach that can hold your hand. Again, I always emphasize the importance of having somebody to help you, to bounce ideas off of, somebody who will reassure you that, yeah, this is normal. This is normal. This
Yeah.
happens. This happened to me too, just like I gave the assurance to my colleagues that no, what you're going through is it's just par for the course. And this is how you can look at it and help you find solutions out of that, that you can put yourself behind. So the coaching really, really helped me with entrepreneurship, because I'd always heard people say it's a very lonely journey.
Yeah.
It's very lonely, especially if you're a sole business owner. And so I understood that. And as I said, I would have quit if it wasn't for the fact that I had a coach, who and also in being in that container to just help me bounce ideas off. So for me, it would definitely be critical for anybody that is thinking about starting a business or a coaching business, even if it's for a short period of time, but just to have somebody to bounce ideas off and have that guidance
Yeah.
around coaching. For me, that was really, really important.
I love that. And the actual doing, because you touched on this before, the coach isn't going to start the business for you. It is up to you to go ahead and do the work and be in action. What do you feel like was the most challenging part? Because delivery aside, you've been coaching for free because you were, advising and coaching your colleagues and other people around you, not just calling yourself a coach. But what do you feel like was the most challenging part for you to understand before you're like, okay, I got it, and then I signed my client? Was it the marketing? Was it the sales? Was it did you have some things like, oh, I need a logo, and then you were really stuck on that? Like, what was kind of like a big sticking point for you as far as a challenge? And how did
Yeah,
you overcome it as well, too? Yeah.
yeah, it was all of the above. But the one issue that I eventually worked out, and it took me a long time to work out, is, understanding that your clients buy you, right?
Yeah.
And me having to put myself out there, you know, as they say, putting yourself out there. I had many reservations about what would my colleagues think,
Mm.
what are they
Mm-hmm.
going to say about me when I sell? I don't want to sound salesy. They're going to judge me. Are they going to come up and tell embarrassing stories about me? Will I look desperate?
Hmm.
So these were all the things that were holding me back. And to some extent, I avoided the platforms where I had a lot of my colleagues that I'd worked with, and I kind of went to platforms
Mm-hmm.
that didn't have a lot of colleagues. But over time and more recently, I started showing up on social media platforms just as who I am, and thinking about being in service. And when I started thinking about being in service, I think even my posts started to change. And the strange thing is that I have an Ubuntu coach. My Ubuntu coach said to me, "I love how you show up on LinkedIn talking about Ubuntu." One of my mentors, somebody that I looked up to so much, somebody that I emulated so much, also sent me a DM, and she said to me, "Oh, I'm learning so much from your posts." And I
Hmm.
thought, "Oh, okay." So perhaps I'm doing something right. I'm helping somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So that for me is what I had to bear in mind, that although initially, yes, it was very, very uncomfortable to do that marketing and to do that selling, but people were reading it. They are reading it, and they are learning from it. They're learning from it, and they're appreciating it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anybody that is thinking about starting a business, I'm sure there's probably, especially as doctors, because we sometimes have this aversion for money as well. There's
Right.
always that somehow doctors should not be taking money. Although I
Right.
always argue that nowadays, we pay for everything. You even pay for your baptism. You want to get married, you pay. You
Yep.
want a prayer, you pray, you pay, you plant a seed. So people are comfortable with that. But somehow when it comes to doctors, I think it's doctors themselves feel there's this war when it comes to taking money,
Right.
and part of that means just marketing yourself. So that's the mindset shift for me, was how to market myself, and really thinking about that marketing myself is actually in service to somebody
Hmm.
else. It's not about money. It's about saying, I'm here and I can help you.
And it's also 100%. And I would say it's not about you promoting yourself either. It's not about, just saying, look at all of the things that I've done, look at all of the things that I've accomplished. It's literally sharing in hopes that what you are sharing, like you said, will help somebody else, will encourage someone else to grow and go deeper. That's been one thing that I am continuously learning how to do, is like, yes, I want to share more and more, and I do share more vulnerable stories about times where I was like really afraid or really low. Um, but it's not just me doing that just to just be a sacrificial lamb. It's so that someone can see, oh, that's normal. Like you said, oh, I feel like that too. If she was able to do it, maybe I can do this exact same thing as well too. So I just love that. Tell me a little bit about some of your clients and what kinds of amazing wins that they're having right now inside of your pro. And then I'm sorry, what do you call? Is it Ubuntu coaching, or what is your program or your offer called?
Yes, so it's Ubuntu Doctor Coaching.
Okay.
And I've been very fortunate to attract amazing clients. And interestingly, they come from, they have different experiences. As I mentioned, I've had interns and community service, people who are pre-qualified. I call them my unicorns. I mean, those are the people that I wish at that age, starting out, I would have gotten a coach and know exactly what I
Exactly what
wanted
to
to
do.
do.
Yes, exactly.
But I have a range of clients, mostly those that are thinking about or transitioning into leadership roles, and those that are already in leadership roles but wanting to have more fulfillment or have more impact in their roles. My favorite story is really about the client. The sort of like the big obvious win is the client that got a promotion, but who came to me saying, I want out of medicine. I want out of medicine, and I'm not interested. I'm frustrated. I don't see what the opportunities are. And we worked with him, and within 6 months, he was promoted into the leadership pool, and still with me, and we're working on other paths for him as well. So I love those kinds of stories, but those are the big wins. For me, the small wins sometimes are around self-awareness.
Yeah.
When a client can say, I don't want to let go because I want to control everything, and that's why I struggle to delegate, you know. Or the client that will say, I'm scared of failure. I'm holding back on going for the opportunities that are in front of me because I don't trust myself, because I didn't do well at medical school. I really struggled at medical school, and I'm scared to fail,
Yeah.
Those are the type of breakthroughs that are very transformative for clients. So they may not necessarily be big stories, maybe in business coaching, we can say, oh my, the client made $200,000 in a year, or a quarter a million in a year, But that breakthrough for me is very fundamental, in that it means that, going forward, there are walls that are going to be broken. There's a trust that's going to be built inherent within the client. So that for me, those are the wins. Those are the wins. Of course, they do translate into job offers, more effectiveness, more time, less burnout, more work-life harmony. But the big win for me, I look at it as, how did you impact the people around you? How did you benefit as an individual in terms of your own self-awareness and being able to trust yourself and draw on your own inner strengths?
So good. So good. And yeah, I think sometimes as a business coach, we feel pressure to, like you said, talk about how much money the client made, which is an external win or a big win. But sometimes the win, and I love celebrating that with my clients as well. Maybe that's the first time you posted on social media. Maybe that's the first time you went live. Maybe you just told the third person ever, I'm a coach and I can help you. Like, those are the significant, more to me, more the significant wins that lead up to, okay, you made X amount of dollars in this time. But once you start making those baby steps along the way, those are what snowball into the bigger wins, which is what you're really looking for at the end of the day. And you're right, and I agree. Like I said, those I think are the best ones, and that we need to make sure that we celebrate. And I try to ensure that my clients celebrate even more, because if it wasn't for that baby step, then you wouldn't have made the big step or the big win that you had. Or if it wasn't for the small win, you wouldn't be able to make the big win necessarily as well too.
Yeah.
So you said that
And
so well.
and once people get those insights about themselves or learn that about themselves, they can't unlearn it.
Yeah.
It just drives them forward.
Mm-hmm.
It may not necessarily be an immediate, like you say, in terms of the profit that they make, but that's a different person there who's developed some internal skills or some resources that will help them,
Yeah.
and you can't undo that.
No.
Yeah.
No, you absolutely can't. Dr. Nondumiso, this has been an incredible conversation. Like I said, y'all, we've been talking way longer than what you were hearing. We started talking about South Africa. We started talking about politics and how she's enjoying living in America now, because you just moved here in last year, 2024.
That's right.
Okay, really briefly, on a personal note, tell me how you met your husband, and then how you even moved to the US, because yeah, that's huge to me.
Yeah. So we met, I was in public health at the time, and we had a mutual professional colleague, and there was a training that was going to be done at Morehouse School of Medicine in
Aha.
Atlanta. Yes. So it was a workshop seminar and international one, people from all over the world. And so I was sitting down, and he sat next to me. And of course, I'm one of the things that I love doing, Kim, is networking. And I think
Mm-hmm.
you're the same. I think you're the same. You love networking and getting to know people. And so it was just sort of from small talk, him sitting next to me, and it kind of grew into a friendship. And yeah, and then how many years later? What, 9 years later, almost 9 years later, it'll be 10 years this year.
Wow.
Yes.
So were
We-
you guys long distance this entire time?
Correct. Yes, yes. So there was a time when he spent most of the time in South Africa.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and then closer to me moving over here, then he moved back just to set everything up. But he did live in South Africa for some time. Yeah, yeah.
That's so cool. And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, or if you've seeing a clip on this on Instagram, Dr. Nondumiso is wearing a beautiful South African beaded necklace, which I have not said anything about until this moment. But that was a piece of traditional jewelry from South Africa, and it's absolutely stunning. It reminds me of some earrings when I was over there, and I also brought a beautiful, kind of almost like a bib or like a collar
Yes.
necklace that had so many beads on it. So I just love the fact that love does not cross any boundaries. I'm somebody like that loves 90 Day Fiance, all of the iterations of that. So I'm so intrigued, and I love to see that love has crossed the ocean, crossed time zones, for you to be here in America. So I know I've said welcome to you a bunch of different times, and of course, like, yeah, we've known each other for about a year or so, but I just think it's so fascinating that you were able to find love kind of like in a very unexpected place. Like, you were just sitting in this workshop, like, yep, I'm just here to learn about public health, which you really didn't even enjoy anyway. Um, but then it's just interesting how your life kind of led you here. So that's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I don't want to add, Kim, my appreciation for colleagues. It's the one of the most challenging things that I've experienced, or what could have potentially been the most challenging, was to restart and reform a network, a professional network.
Yeah.
You know. But I think you were one of the first people that just kind of reached out and you gave me some advice. Said, join this. Yes, yourself. You said, join this association, look at this. They have a local chapter, look at the meetings, and it's made such a huge difference to me. Yourself and other colleagues, have really made me feel welcome. I can really list now colleagues in the medical profession in the US that have really made that transition so easy, because I was a bit nervous,
Yeah.
after building a network in South Africa and moving to a new country. Will I be accepted by colleagues here? And people like yourself have made it such such a comfortable experience. I felt very supported in trying to rebuild my professional work. So I just wanted to thank you and other American doctors that have also extended that hand of support. Is that call me up anytime. Let's do a virtual coffee. It just really eased that discomfort. So yeah, just to appreciate that.
Oh, well, you're so welcome. And I do remember what you're talking about. I told you to join the National Medical Association. I was like, oh, yeah, there's a ton of black doctors. You can come to this conference. They got a local. And you did. And I'm so glad that you did because I understand the loneliness of being in a new place. I don't know if I've shared this with you personally, but I've shared it with the podcast audience that I recently moved from Memphis, where I had my doctor network, where I was a part of the National Medical Association chapter there, and they really enveloped me, to Northwest Arkansas, which we went from this to this overnight. And it's been, I understand now, kind of like the journey of starting over. It's different when you're starting over when you're younger. It's a lot easier to meet friends, especially if you're coming for school or for something else like that. But yeah, it can be so isolating and intimidating to come into a new country, and a new space, and wonder if your business is going to thrive, wonder if you personally are going to connect with the people. So I identify with that. Long story short, you're more than welcome. I totally can identify what it's like to feel alone. And so if it's anything that I can do to help anyone to at least feel more connected to someone else, or to know that they're not alone, that's really important to me. So long story short, it is, like I said, you're more than welcome. You're an amazing clinician. You're an amazing leader. You're an amazing coach. And every interaction that I've ever had with you has always been incredible. So I'm happy to do it. So yeah.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Is there anything else that you want to share with the Docs Get Money podcast audience? Or like, where can we find you if a doctor is looking for a leadership coach and they want to hear more about Ubuntu doctor coaching? Where can we find you on the internet?
Yes, the website is www.ubuntu.coaching. Ubuntu is Ubuntu, and I usually hang out on LinkedIn, and that is my profile is Dr. Nondumiso Makhunga-Stevenson. It's my name. So if you just type my name in on LinkedIn, you will find me. Instagram is not. I do hang out there sometimes. It's dr underscore Nondumiso Nondumiso. Yeah, and then of course, you can email me. It's Dr. Nondumiso DrNonDumiso at ubuntudoctorcoaching.com.
Awesome. Guys, if you didn't catch all that, if you are driving in your car, you about to, click off because you got to go see a patient, don't worry. Just check your show notes, and we will make sure that we are having all of Dr. Nondumiso's links so that you can get in touch with her. We definitely want to make sure that you are locked in and following her. If not, just on LinkedIn, because she does share incredible insights, incredible stories about how to improve your leadership, how to manage your time better, how to use the concept of Ubuntu and oneness and bringing it into your everyday life. So you definitely, if not just want to just follow her on LinkedIn, it's an incredible, incredible journey. But Dr. Nondumiso, thank you again so much for this interview of the Docs Get Money podcast. This has been amazing. And like I said, thank you so much. I truly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kim. Nice to connect with you again. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to the Docs Get Money podcast. New episodes drop every Thursday wherever you find your favorite podcast. Share, comment, follow, and subscribe to the Docs Get Money podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to know more, visit me, Dr. Kimberly Brown, at KimberlyBrownMD.com, and be sure to follow me at Dr. Kimberly B on Instagram. And until next time, let's go get this money, honey.